He's lying, Mom. Jaden Okoye's voice trembled in a Chicago banquet hall where jazz and betrayal danced in the shadows. A 12-year-old boy clutching his father's silver ring stood against a con man's charm, his mother's heart hanging in the balance. Khalil's smile hid a deadly plot, but Jaden's courage held the key to truth. What secrets lay in a hidden USB? Could a child's hunch unravel a web of lies? Listen to uncover a tale of bravery and deception where love battles a predator's mask. Will Jaden save his family, or will trust shatter forever? Rate this story 1 if it grips you, 0 if it falls flat. Stay till the end. Can you guess how one boy's stand changes everything? The air in the Okoye household carried the faint hum of jazz, a ghost of better days, as 12-year-old Jaden Okoye sat cross-legged on the living room floor, his fingers tracing the cool silver of his father's ring. The engraved letters, Tunde, felt like a heartbeat against his skin, a tether to the man who taught him to fish, to laugh, to listen to the world's quiet warnings. 3 years had passed since the fire stole Tunde Okoye, leaving Jaden and his mother Imani to stitch their lives back together in their modest Chicago home. Tonight, though, the house felt different, heavier, as if it held a secret Jaden was only beginning to sense. Imani moved through the kitchen, her laughter bright as she stirred a pot of jollof rice, the aroma weaving through the air like a warm embrace. Her smile, once rare, had returned since she met Khalil Brooks, the man who'd swept into their lives 6 months ago like a summer breeze. Khalil, with his tailored suits and easy charm, seemed to fill the empty spaces Tunde had left behind. He'd brought Imani flowers, taken Jaden to basketball games, and spun stories of his real estate ventures that made Imani's eyes sparkle with hope. To the neighbors, to the church choir, to anyone who saw them, Khalil was a blessing, a second chance for a widow and her son. But Jaden's stomach twisted every time Khalil's gaze lingered too long, not on Imani, but on the world beyond her, a world Jaden couldn't yet name. "Jaden, baby, set the table," Imani called, her voice a melody over the sizzle of the stove. She wore her favorite yellow dress, the one she'd saved for special occasions before Khalil convinced her every day could be one. Jaden forced a smile, sliding the ring into his pocket. He grabbed the plates, his eyes flicking to Khalil, who lounged on the couch, scrolling through his phone with a focus that felt too sharp, too deliberate. The man's laugh was loud, his stories polished, but Jaden noticed the cracks, the way Khalil's smile never reached his eyes, the way his fingers tightened around his phone when Imani wasn't looking. As Jaden placed the plates, a memory surfaced. Tunde, sitting at this very table, his deep voice steady. "Trust your gut, son. It's like a compass when the world gets foggy." Jaden's gut was screaming now, a low, insistent churn that grew louder each time Khalil spoke. Last week, Jaden had seen him slip out to the backyard after dinner, his voice dropping to a hiss as he spoke into his phone. "Rhea, it's all falling into place. We'll have everything soon." The name Rhea lingered in Jaden's mind, sharp as a splinter. Who was she? And what was everything? Tonight, Khalil was in high spirits, regaling Imani with a tale of a skyscraper deal in downtown Chicago. "Nia, this one's gonna change everything," he said, his teeth gleaming as he leaned across the counter, brushing Imani's hand. She blushed, her laughter like a bell. Jaden watched, his fork hovering over his plate. Khalil's charm was a performance, a mask that slipped when he thought no one was watching. Jaden had caught it once, a glance toward the hallway, cold and calculating, as if measuring the house itself. It wasn't love in those eyes. It was something darker, hungrier. "Jaden, you're quiet tonight," Khalil said, his voice smooth but edged, his eyes locking onto the boys. Jaden's heart skipped. He felt the weight of the ring in his pocket, Tunde's silent encouragement. "Just thinking about school," Jaden mumbled, pushing rice around his plate. Khalil's smile tightened, a flicker of something, suspicion, crossing his face before he turned back to Imani. "Kid's got his dad's focus," he said, chuckling. Imani beamed, but Jaden's skin prickled. The mention of Tunde felt like a theft, a line Khalil had no right to cross. Dinner ended with Imani humming a jazz tune, her joy almost painful to witness. Jaden cleared the table, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the image of Khalil in the backyard, his voice low and urgent. Rhea, we're close. Just keep the plan tight. Jaden hadn't heard the rest, but the tone, sharp, secretive, clung to him like damp Chicago fog. He glanced at Imani, washing dishes, her movements light, unaware. She deserved to smile, to feel safe, but Jaden's gut told him Khalil was a threat, a shadow disguised as sunlight. As Imani retreated to her room to call her sister, Jaden lingered in the living room, his eyes on Khalil. The man stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his voice a whisper. Rhea, we're on track. The wedding's soon. After that, it's ours. Jaden's breath caught. He ducked behind the couch, his heart hammering. Khalil's words were a puzzle, each piece sharper than the last. A wedding, something ours. And Rhea, who was she? A partner, a planner. Jaden's fingers brushed the ring in his pocket, Tunde's voice steady in his mind. Protect what matters, son. Khalil ended the call, his silhouette stark against the streetlight glow. He turned, and for a moment his eyes seemed to pierce the shadows where Jaden hid. The boy held his breath, every muscle taut, until Khalil strode toward the kitchen, oblivious. Jaden exhaled, his mind a storm of fear and resolve. He couldn't tell Imani, not yet. She was too wrapped in Khalil's charm, too convinced he was her second chance. But Jaden knew better. His dad had taught him to see through the fog, to trust the unease that coiled in his chest. Back in his room, Jaden sat on his bed, the ring glinting in his palm. The house was quiet now, but the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. He thought of Imani's laughter, her yellow dress, the way she looked at Khalil as if he could rebuild their broken world. But Jaden saw the truth in Khalil's cold glances, his whispered calls. Something was coming, something dangerous, and Jaden was the only one who could stop it. He slipped the ring onto his finger, its weight a promise. Whatever Khalil was planning, Jaden would uncover it. For his mom, for his dad, for the family they'd fought so hard to keep. The Chicago morning was alive with the clatter of streetcars and the distant wail of a saxophone. But inside the Okoye home, Jaden's world was a tightrope of silence and suspicion. The weight of his father's silver ring pressed against his thigh, a quiet anchor as he sat at the kitchen table, pretending to focus on his math homework. His mother Imani had left for her shift at the bank, her yellow dress replaced by scrubs, her laughter from last night's dinner now a fading echo. Khalil Brooks, her fiancé, was in the shower, the hum of water a deceptive calm. Jaden's eyes darted to the counter, where Khalil's leather wallet lay, unguarded, like a snake coiled in the sun. Last night's whispered phone call, Rhea, we're close, burned in his mind, fueling the unease that had rooted deep in his chest. Jaden's fingers twitched, Tunde's voice a steady drumbeat. Trust your gut, son. He'd seen Khalil guard that wallet like a treasure, slipping it into his pocket even for a trip to the fridge. Now it sat exposed, a rare misstep from a man whose every move felt calculated. Jaden glanced at the hallway, the shower's drone unbroken. His heart thudded, a wild rhythm urging him forward. He slid from his chair, his sneakers silent on the linoleum, and approached the counter. The wallet's leather was smooth, heavy with secrets. His hands trembled as he opened it, the faint scent of cologne mixing with his own nervous sweat. Inside were crisp bills, a credit card, and, tucked in a hidden flap, a small black USB drive, its surface cold against his fingertips. Jaden's breath hitched. This was no ordinary USB. Khalil, with his polished suits and silver tongue, didn't leave things like this lying around. The shower's hum faltered, a brief pause that sent Jaden's pulse racing. He darted to his room, clutching the USB like a stolen gem, and locked the door. His dad's old tablet, scratched but faithful, powered on with a soft hum. Jaden plugged in the USB, his fingers fumbling as a password prompt appeared. His mind raced. Khalil was too cunning for something obvious. Then a flash. Imani's favorite jazz song, the one Khalil hummed to impress her. Jaden typed "Summertime 1928," holding his breath. The screen blinked and a folder opened. Chicago Plan. The first file was a life insurance policy, Imani's name in bold. Jaden's stomach churned as he read $1.2 million with Khalil Brooks as the sole beneficiary. The document looked real. Logos, signatures, fine print. But a watermark screamed draft in red, a lie dressed in official ink. Another file outlined a plan to sell Imani's apartment, their home, the place where Tunde's laughter once filled the walls. The numbers were staggering. $800,000 wired to an offshore account. Tucked at the bottom was a handwritten note scrawled in sharp ink. Rhea, airport, Tuesday after wedding. Jaden's vision blurred, his fingers shaking as he snapped photos with his phone. Khalil wasn't just after money. He and this Rhea were planning to erase Imani's life, to take everything and vanish. The shower stopped. Jaden froze, the tablet's glow casting shadows on his face. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, slow and deliberate. He yanked the USB free, shoving it into his pocket beside Tunde's ring. The tablet powered down just as a knock rattled his door. "Jaden, you in there?" Khalil's voice was smooth, but it carried an edge, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Jaden's heart slammed against his ribs. He stuffed the phone under his pillow and opened the door, forcing a sleepy yawn. "Yeah, just waking up," he lied, his voice steady despite the storm inside. Khalil stood in the doorway, towel around his neck, his eyes scanning the room. "Thought I heard you moving around," he said, his smile tight, probing. Jaden shrugged, his fingers brushing the ring for courage. "Just getting my homework," he said, pointing to the scattered papers on his desk. Khalil's gaze lingered, as if he could see the USB burning a hole in Jaden's pocket. Then he nodded, stepping back. "Good kid. Your mom's lucky to have you." The words were warm, but they landed like ice, chilling Jaden to the bone. Alone again, Jaden sank onto his bed, the USB a heavy weight in his hand. He replayed the files in his mind. The fake insurance, the house sale, Rhea's name. His mom's face flashed before him, her laughter at dinner, her trust in Khalil's promises. She deserved better than this betrayal, this theft disguised as love. But telling her now felt impossible. Imani was so happy, her eyes bright with dreams of a new life. Would she believe him, a 12-year-old with a hunch and some photos? Or would she see it as jealousy, a boy clinging to his dad's memory? Jaden's fingers closed around Tunde's ring, its edges sharp against his palm. He remembered his dad's stories by the lake, the way Tunde's voice carried strength and certainty. "Protect what matters, son." Jaden's chest tightened. He couldn't let Khalil's plan unfold, couldn't let his mom walk into a trap. But he needed more. Proof that would shatter Khalil's charm, proof no one could deny. The USB was a start, but it wasn't enough. He needed to know who Rhea was, what they were planning beyond the money. Were they just thieves, or was there something darker waiting? As sunlight spilled through his window, painting Chicago's skyline in gold, Jaden made a silent vow. He'd watch Khalil, every step, every glance. He'd listen to the whispers, follow the shadows. The USB was his first clue, a crack in Khalil's perfect mask. Jaden slipped it into his desk drawer, hidden beneath comic books, and tucked his phone close. The house was quiet now, but danger hummed beneath the surface, a storm gathering strength. Jaden felt Tunde's ring against his skin, a steady pulse. Whatever Khalil was hiding, Jaden would find it. For Imani. For the home they'd fought to keep. For the father who'd taught him to never look away from the truth. Jaden Okoye's room was a fortress of shadows, the Chicago skyline glinting through his window like a city holding its breath. The USB, now hidden beneath a pile of comic books in his desk drawer, felt like a ticking bomb. Its secrets, Khalil's fake insurance policy, the plan to sell Imani's home, the cryptic note about Rhea, burning in Jaden's mind. His father's silver ring, etched with Tunde's name, pressed against his palm, a steady pulse urging him to act. The morning's close call, Khalil's piercing gaze as he stood in the doorway, lingered like a chill Jaden couldn't shake. He knew he couldn't face this alone, not with his mother Imani, so wrapped in Khalil's charm she couldn't see the snake beneath his smile. Jaden's heart raced as he sat on his bed, the house quiet except for the faint clink of dishes from the kitchen where Khalil now moved. His presence, a stain on their home. Imani was still at the bank, her absence a fragile window for Jaden to make his move. He couldn't tell her, not yet. Her laughter from last night, so full of hope, would crumble if he showed her the USB's contents. Would she believe him, a 12-year-old clutching photos and fears over the man who'd brought her back to life? Jaden's gut twisted, but Tunde's voice echoed, "Protect what matters, son." He needed someone who'd listen, someone who'd see through Khalil's mask. His fingers trembled as he pulled out his phone, scrolling to the one name he trusted, Zuri, his dad's sister. Zuri, with her sharp eyes and no-nonsense voice, had been Jaden's rock since Tunde's death. She'd taught him to tie a tie, taken him to jazz clubs to hear the music Tunde loved, and never dismissed his worries as childish. Jaden slipped into his closet. The door cracked just enough to muffle his voice and dialed her number. The line rang, each tone stretching his nerves taut. "Jaden?" Zuri's voice was warm but edged with concern, cutting through the static of his fear. "What's wrong, baby?" "Aunt Zuri," Jaden whispered, his voice barely steady. "Khalil's planning something bad. He's not who he says he is." The words tumbled out, urgent and raw. He told her about the USB, the fake insurance policy for $1.2 million, the plan to sell their home, the note about Rhea, and an airport escape. His voice cracked as he described Khalil's suspicious glance, the way his charm felt like a trap. "He's going to hurt Mom, Zuri. I don't know what to do." Silence hung heavy on the line, and Jaden's heart sank, fearing she'd think he was imagining things. But Zuri's voice came back, firm as steel. "Jaden, you did right calling me. Write down every detail, everything you saw on that USB. Don't let Khalil know you suspect him." Her words were a lifeline, pulling Jaden from the edge of panic. "I know someone who can help, a friend named Nia Tate. She's a private investigator, sharp as they come. I'm calling her now, but you have to be careful, baby. If Khalil's planning what you say, he's dangerous." Jaden nodded, though she couldn't see, his fingers tightening around Tunde's ring. "I will," he promised, his voice steadier now, bolstered by Zuri's trust. The closet felt smaller, the air thicker, as Jaden ended the call. He grabbed a notebook, scribbling every word from the USB. Chicago plan, $1.2 million. Rhea, airport, Tuesday. His hand shook, the pen scratching like a warning. He tucked the notebook under his mattress, next to the phone with the USB photos, and hid the USB itself in a hollowed-out comic book, its pages a shield for his secret. The house creaked, and Jaden froze, his ears straining. Khalil was in the living room now, his voice low, talking to someone. "Rhea?" Jaden's pulse hammered. He couldn't hear the words, but the tone was sharp, urgent, a predator planning its strike. Jaden slipped out of the closet, his sneakers silent on the hardwood floor. He needed to see what Khalil was doing, to catch a glimpse of the man behind the mask. From the hallway, he peeked around the corner, his breath shallow. Khalil stood by the couch, phone pressed to his ear, his back to Jaden. "Rhea, keep everything ready," he murmured, his voice a blade wrapped in silk. "We can't have any mistakes." Jaden's skin prickled, Tunde's ring a burning weight in his pocket. He backed away, his heart a drumbeat, and retreated to his room, locking the door. Sitting on his bed, Jaden stared at the photos on his phone. The insurance policy, the note about Rhea. Each image was a piece of a puzzle, but the picture was still incomplete. Who was Rhea? A partner in Khalil's scam? A stranger waiting to tear their family apart? Jaden's chest ached with the weight of it all. He wanted to run to Imani, to show her the truth, but Zuri's warning echoed, "Be careful." Khalil's eyes, sharp and searching, had seen too much this morning. If he suspected Jaden knew, what would he do? The ring glinted in Jaden's palm, Tunde's strength flowing through it. Zuri believed him, and Nia Tate was coming. Jaden wasn't alone anymore, but the danger was closer than ever. Khalil's footsteps echoed in the hallway, pausing outside Jaden's door. The boy held his breath, his hand on the notebook, ready to protect his evidence. The footsteps moved on, and Jaden exhaled, his resolve hardening. He'd keep his secret safe, watch Khalil's every move, and wait for Zuri's plan. For Imani, for the home Tunde had built, Jaden would be the shield his family needed, even if it meant facing a storm alone. The Chicago dusk painted the Okoye home in hues of amber, but to Jaden Okoye, it felt like a storm brewing, each shadow hiding a threat. The USB, tucked away in his comic book fortress, held Khalil's secrets. A fake insurance policy, a plan to sell Imani's home, a note about Rhea, but it wasn't enough. Zuri's voice echoed in his mind, steady and urgent. Be careful, baby. He's dangerous. Jaden's fingers grazed the silver ring in his pocket, Tunde's name etched into its surface like a vow. He'd found a crack in Khalil's mask, but to save his mother, he needed more. A shard of truth sharp enough to cut through Khalil's charm. The house hummed with tension, Khalil's presence a dark current beneath the surface of their daily life. Jaden sat at the kitchen table, his math book open, a flimsy disguise for his racing thoughts. Imani was at her evening shift, leaving the house to him and Khalil, who lounged in the living room, his polished shoes gleaming under the lamp. Khalil's eyes flicked to Jaden too often now, a predator sizing up its prey. Since the close call with the USB, Khalil had become meticulous. His wallet never left unguarded, his phone locked tight. But Jaden, fueled by Tunde's words, protect what matters, knew he had to act. Zuri had promised help from Nia Tate, the private investigator, but they needed proof no one could deny. Proof that would stop Khalil before he could hurt Imani. The faint buzz of Khalil's phone broke the silence. He stepped onto the back porch, sliding the glass door shut, his voice a low murmur. Jaden's heart quickened. This was his chance. He grabbed his phone, its cracked screen a relic of Tunde's fishing trips, and activated the voice recorder. Slipping to the porch door, he pressed himself against the wall, the glass cool against his cheek. Khalil's words drifted through, sharp and chilling. Rhea, the drug's ready. After the wedding, we slip it in her tea. Heart failure, clean and quiet. We take the kid to leverage the bank transfer, then we're gone. Jaden's blood turned to ice, his thumb trembling on the record button. Drug her? Take the kid. The words carved themselves into his mind, each one a dagger aimed at Imani. He stopped the recording, his breath shallow, and retreated to the kitchen, his sneakers silent on the hardwood. Khalil's plan wasn't just theft, it was murder, with Jaden as a pawn. The ring in his pocket felt heavier, Tunde's strength urging him on. But a recording wasn't enough. Khalil could claim it was a misunderstanding. Jaden needed something tangible, something to shatter Imani's trust in her fiancé. His eyes fell on Khalil's jacket, draped over a chair, the one he wore to his business meetings. Jaden's pulse raced. He'd seen Khalil slip something into the pocket yesterday, his movements quick, secretive. With Khalil still on the porch, Jaden moved like a shadow, his fingers brushing the jacket's fabric. Inside the pocket, he found a small glass vial, its clear liquid glinting ominously, and a folded paper. His hands shook as he unfolded it, a plane ticket to the Cayman Islands. 2 seats, Khalil's name listed as Leon Carter. Jaden's throat tightened. Leon Carter. The fake ID matched the name on the USB, a piece of Khalil's true self. The vial, though, its purpose was darker, tied to the drug Khalil mentioned. Jaden snapped photos, his phone's flash a risky beacon in the dim kitchen. The porch door slid open, and Jaden shoved the vial and ticket back, diving into his chair just as Khalil stepped inside. Still at it, huh? Khalil's voice was smooth, but his eyes narrowed, scanning Jaden's face. Math's tough, I bet. Jaden forced a nod, his heart a drumbeat. Yeah, fractions, he mumbled, flipping a page. Khalil lingered, his gaze heavy, as if he could sense the evidence burning in Jaden's phone. Then he grabbed his jacket and strode to the couch, oblivious to the boy's racing pulse. Jaden exhaled, his fingers clutching Tunde's ring. He'd gotten what he needed, but the danger was closer now, Khalil's suspicion a tightening noose. Back in his room, Jaden locked the door, his breath ragged. He uploaded the recording and photos to a hidden folder on his phone, password protected with Tunde's favorite jazz tune. The vial, the ticket, the words about drugging Imani, they painted a picture of betrayal so vivid it made Jaden's chest ache. He imagined Imani's smile, her trust in Khalil, the way she danced to jazz in the kitchen. She didn't deserve this, but doubt gnawed at him. Would she believe him? Or would Khalil twist the truth, painting Jaden as a jealous kid clinging to his dad's memory? Jaden paced, the floor creaking under his weight. Zuri's call with Nia Tate gave him hope, but they needed more than photos and a recording. Nia had said the police would act only with undeniable proof, something public, something Khalil couldn't deny. Jaden's mind raced, replaying Khalil's words. Take the kid to leverage the bank transfer. He wasn't just a bystander. He was part of Khalil's plan, a tool to force Imani's hand. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, but it also steeled his resolve. Tunde's ring glinted in the lamplight, a beacon in the storm. As night settled over Chicago, the city's hum a distant lullaby, Jaden sat at his desk, scribbling notes. Vial, ticket, Leon Carter, drug in tea. He hid the notebook under his mattress next to his phone and tucked Tunde's ring into his pocket. Khalil was downstairs, his laughter filling the house as he called Imani, his voice dripping with false warmth. Jaden's stomach churned, but he felt Tunde's strength, a fire kindled by his father's love. He wasn't alone. Zuri and Nia were out there, working to stop Khalil. But Jaden knew the truth rested on his shoulders. He'd watch, wait, and strike when the moment came. For Imani, for their home, for the father who taught him to fight for what was right. The Chicago night pulsed with life, its skyline a glittering cage as Jaden Okoye stepped into the elegant banquet hall, his father's silver ring a quiet weight in his pocket. The air thrummed with jazz and laughter, the clink of glasses mingling with the scent of spiced chicken and cornbread from the buffet. Imani Okoye, radiant in a crimson dress that caught the light like fire, stood at the center of the engagement party, her smile a beacon of joy. Beside her, Khalil Brooks, in a tailored navy suit, played the perfect fiancé, his charm wrapping the room like a velvet curtain. But Jaden, his heart a drumbeat of dread, knew the truth hidden in his phone. The USB's fake insurance policy, the plane ticket, the vial of poison, and Khalil's chilling words about drugging Imani and taking Jaden. Tonight, with Zuri and Nia Tate's plan in motion, was his last chance to tear down Khalil's mask. Jaden adjusted his tie, his palms slick with sweat. The banquet hall, draped in gold and white streamers, felt like a stage set for a tragedy. Imani twirled under the chandelier, her laughter cutting through the music, unaware of the viper at her side. Khalil's eyes, sharp as broken glass, flicked to Jaden now and then, a predator sensing a threat. Since Jaden's stealthy moves, snatching the recording, finding the vial, Khalil's watchfulness had tightened, his smiles laced with suspicion. Jaden felt the ring in his pocket, toned his voice a steady whisper. Protect what matters, son. He'd promised Zuri he'd wait for her signal, but the weight of his evidence burned, urging him to act. The crowd buzzed, family and friends toasting Imani's happiness. Jaden spotted Zuri near the bar, her braided hair catching the light, her eyes locked on him with a nod of reassurance. Nia Tate, the private investigator, blended into the crowd, her sharp gaze tracking Khalil. They'd met Jaden earlier, outside the hall, where he'd handed over copies of the USB photos and the recording. Nia's voice had been calm but firm. We've got police nearby, but we need Khalil to slip up in public. Stay close, Jaden, but don't act alone. Jaden had nodded, his stomach nodding. The plan was to watch Khalil, catch him in a mistake. But Jaden knew waiting might not be enough. Khalil was too careful, too cunning. As the band shifted to a slower tune, Khalil raised a glass, his voice smooth as honey. To Imani, my heart, my future, he said, pulling her close. The crowd cheered, but Jaden's blood ran cold. He saw the calculation in Khalil's smile, the way his hand lingered on Imani's waist like a claim on a prize. Jaden's phone, heavy with proof, felt like a grenade in his pocket. He edged toward the edge of the dance floor, his eyes catching Khalil slipping away to a quiet corner, phone in hand. Jaden's pulse quickened. He crept closer, hiding behind a pillar, the music masking his steps. Khalil's voice was low, urgent. Rhea, if the kid's on to us, we move tonight. The drug's in my jacket. We can't wait. Jaden's heart lurched. Tonight. Khalil wasn't waiting for the wedding. The vial of poison tucked in that jacket was meant for Imani now. Jaden's fingers brushed the ring, tuned his strength flooding him. He couldn't wait for Nia's signal. Khalil's plan was accelerating, and Imani's life hung in the balance. He glanced at Zuri, who was talking to a guest, unaware of Khalil's call. Nia was across the room, her eyes on the crowd. Jaden was alone, the weight of his choice crushing. He slipped his phone out, checking the recording and photos, ensuring they were ready. His thumb hovered over the screen, his breath shallow. The MC's voice boomed, inviting guests to share stories about the couple. The crowd clapped, eyes turning to the stage. Jaden's chest tightened, his sneakers rooted to the floor. This was it, the moment to act or lose everything. Khalil returned to Imani's side, his arm around her, his smile a perfect lie. Jaden's mind raced, replaying Khalil's words. Drug in her tea. Take the kid. He saw Imani smile, so trusting, so fragile. Tunde's ring burned against his skin, a call to courage. Jaden took a step toward the stage, his legs trembling, but his resolve hardening like steel. He caught Zuri's eye, her face shifting from calm to alarm as she saw his movement. She shook her head slightly, mouthing, "Wait." But Jaden couldn't. Khalil's jacket hung on a chair nearby, the vial inside a ticking bomb. Jaden's fingers closed around his phone, the evidence his only weapon. He thought of Tunde, of the fire that took him, of Imani's laughter that deserved to live. The MC called again, "Anyone else for Imani and Khalil?" Jaden's heart thundered, a storm breaking free. He stepped forward, the crowd's eyes turning to him. Imani's smile warm but puzzled, Khalil's gaze sharp as a blade. Jaden's voice when it came was a whisper, but it carried the weight of truth. "I have something to say," he said, his words trembling but growing stronger. The room hushed, the jazz fading to a distant hum. Khalil's smile faltered, his hand tightening on Imani's arm. Jaden felt Tunde's ring, a pulse of courage, and knew he couldn't turn back. The banquet hall, with its golden light and joyful faces, was a powder keg, and Jaden held the match. Whatever happened next, he'd light the truth, for Imani, for their home, for the father who'd taught him to never look away from danger. The banquet hall in Chicago glowed with golden light, jazz weaving through the air like a heartbeat. But to Jaden Okoye, it was a battlefield, each note a countdown to truth or ruin. The crowd's laughter rang hollow as he stood before the microphone, his 12-year-old frame trembling under the weight of every eye in the room. His mother, Imani Okoye, radiant in her crimson dress, stared at him with a puzzled smile, her joy a fragile shield against the storm Jaden was about to unleash. Khalil Brooks, her fiancé, stood beside her, his tailored suit pristine, his smile a razor's edge. Jaden's fingers gripped his phone, loaded with the USB's damning evidence, a fake insurance policy, a plane ticket, a vial of poison, and a recording of Khalil's chilling plan to drug Imani and kidnap Jaden. Tunde's silver ring burned in his pocket, his father's voice a steady pulse. "Protect what matters, son." This was the moment, the match to ignite the truth. Jaden's voice cracked as he spoke, a whisper that sliced through the jazz. "Mom, I have to tell you something." The crowd hushed, glasses pausing mid-clink, eyes swiveling to the boy who dared interrupt the celebration. Imani's smile faltered, her hand tightening on Khalil's arm. Khalil's eyes, sharp as shattered glass, locked onto Jaden, a predator sensing danger. Zuri across the room froze, her braided hair catching the chandelier's glow, her nod urging Jaden on. Nia Tate, the private investigator, edged closer to the stage, her gaze steady, signaling the police nearby. Jaden's heart thundered, but he stood taller, Tunde's ring afire in his veins. "Khalil's lying," Jaden said, his voice gaining strength, each word a stone hurled at Khalil's facade. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a tide of shock and disbelief. Imani's eyes widened, her hand dropping from Khalil's arm. "Jaden, baby, what are you saying?" she asked, her voice soft, trembling. Khalil stepped forward, his smile tight, his voice smooth as venom. "He's just a kid, Imani, probably nervous about the wedding. Let's not ruin the night." But Jaden saw the flicker in Khalil's eyes. Fear, raw and unmasked. Jaden raised his phone, its cracked screen a relic of Tunde's love, and connected it to the banquet hall's projector. The crowd gasped as images flashed on the screen. A fake life insurance policy for Imani, $1.2 million. Khalil as the beneficiary. A plan to sell their home. A note scrawled with Rhea. Airport, Tuesday. This was in his wallet, Jaden said, his voice steady now, cutting through the stunned silence. He's not Khalil Brooks. He's Leon Carter. He held up the plane ticket photo, 2 seats to the Cayman Islands under the false name. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a woman whispering, "Oh my God," another muttering, "Is this real?" Khalil's laugh was sharp, forced. "This is ridiculous. He's making it up, Imani. Kids imagine things." But his hands twitched, betraying him. Jaden's fingers trembled as he played the recording, Khalil's voice filling the hall like poison. "Rhea, the drug's ready. After the wedding, we slip it in her tea. Heart failure, clean and quiet. We take the kid to leverage the bank transfer." The room erupted, gasps and cries drowning the jazz. Imani's face crumpled, her hand clutching her chest as if struck. "Khalil," she whispered, her voice breaking, a plea for it to be a lie. Khalil's mask shattered. "You little brat," he snarled, lunging for Jaden's phone, his face twisted with rage. But Nia Tate was faster, stepping between them, her voice calm but ironclad. "Stay back, Mr. Carter." 2 plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, their badges glinting. "Leon Carter, you're under arrest for conspiracy and fraud," one said, grabbing Khalil's arm. Khalil struggled, his voice shrill. "This is a setup. I love Imani." But the crowd's shock turned to anger, their whispers a chorus of betrayal. Jaden's legs wobbled, but he held his ground. Tunda's ring a steady anchor. He pulled the vial of clear liquid from his pocket, the one he'd found in Khalil's jacket. "This was in his pocket too," he said, handing it to Nia. Her eyes narrowed, recognizing its danger. Imani sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face, her crimson dress a stark contrast to her ashen expression. "Jaden, how did you—" she whispered, unable to finish. Jaden rushed to her, his arms wrapping around her, his voice small but fierce. "I had to stop him, Mom. He was going to hurt you." The officers cuffed Khalil, his protests fading as they led him through the stunned crowd. Zuri joined Jaden and Imani, her hand on Jaden's shoulder, her eyes fierce with pride. "You did good, baby," she whispered. Imani clung to Jaden, her sobs shaking them both. "You saved me," she said, her voice raw. "My brave boy." Jaden's throat tightened, guilt mingling with relief. He'd shattered her happiness, but he'd kept her alive. The banquet hall, once alive with celebration, now buzzed with shock, guests whispering about the boy who'd unmasked a con man. Nia Tate approached, her voice low. "We'll need you both at the station for statements. The violent evidence are enough to hold him, but there's more to this. Rhea, others." Jaden nodded, his heart still racing. The jazz played on, a mournful note now, echoing Imani's grief. Jaden felt Tunde's ring, its weight a reminder of his father's love. He'd faced Khalil, exposed his lies, but the cost was heavy, Imani's broken heart, the trust she'd placed in a fraud. As the crowd dispersed, their whispers a tide of awe and pity, Jaden held his mother's hand, vowing to protect her, no matter what came next. The Chicago night settled over the Okoye home like a heavy quilt, muffling the city's hum, but not the ache in Jaden's heart. The banquet hall's chaos, the gasps, Khalil's unmasked rage, Imani's shattered tears, still echoed in his mind, a storm that had passed but left wreckage in its wake. Jaden sat on the living room couch, his father's silver ring glinting in his palm, Tunda's name a quiet strength. Across from him, Imani curled into an armchair, her crimson dress from the engagement party replaced by a worn sweater, her eyes red-rimmed but soft. The house felt emptier now, Khalil's shadow gone, his lies exposed as Leon Carter, a con man cuffed and taken away. Yet the victory was bittersweet, stained with Imani's grief and Jaden's guilt for breaking her heart. The 12-year-old hero clutched Tunde's ring, its edges sharp with purpose, knowing their story wasn't over. It was just beginning to ripple. Imani's voice broke the silence, fragile but warm. "Jaden, baby, how did you know?" She leaned forward, her hands trembling as she reached for his. Jaden's throat tightened, the memory of Khalil's venomous snarl. "You little brat," still raw. I just, Felt it, Mom, he said, his voice low. Dad told me to trust my gut. Khalil's smiles, his whispers, they weren't right. He didn't mention the sleepless nights, the USB's chilling secrets, the vial of poison that could have ended her life. Those truths were too heavy for this moment, but Imani's eyes, searching his, seemed to understand. You saved me, she whispered, pulling him into a hug, her warmth a balm against the cold of betrayal. The days that followed were a blur of police interviews and whispered conversations. Jaden and Imani sat in a stark precinct room, the air thick with coffee and tension, as Nia Tate, the private investigator, laid out the scope of Khalil's deceit. Leon Carter and his partner Rhea were part of a network targeting single parents, Nia said, her voice steady but grim. They've hit at least 4 families across the Midwest, draining savings, selling homes, vanishing. Jaden's stomach churned, imagining other kids like him, other mothers like Imani, caught in their web. Nia's eyes softened as she looked at Jaden. Your evidence, the USB, the recording, that vial, cracked their operation wide open. Rhea was picked up at a motel last night, with fake IDs and bank records linking them to the others. Imani's hand tightened around Jaden's, her breath shaky. What did they want with my boy? She asked, her voice breaking. Nia hesitated, then met her gaze. They planned to use Jaden to force you to sign over your accounts. The drug was meant to make you compliant. Imani's sob cut through the room and Jaden wrapped his arms around her, his own eyes stinging. He'd saved her, but the truth hurt. Khalil's love was a lie, his charm a weapon. Tunda's ring pressed against Jaden's palm, a reminder of why he'd fought, to protect what mattered. Back home, the Okoye household began to heal, stitch by fragile stitch. Imani cooked jollof rice again, the kitchen filling with its familiar warmth, but her laughter was quieter now, her eyes distant. Jaden helped, chopping peppers, his silence a steady presence. One evening, as they sat by Lake Michigan, the water lapping softly under a starlit sky, Imani spoke, her voice steady for the first time. I was so lost after your dad, Jaden. I thought Khalil was a new start. But you're my real light. Jaden's chest swelled, Tunda's ring warm in his pocket. We're a team, Mom, he said, echoing words his father once used. Imani smiled, a small spark of her old fire returning, and they tossed stones into the lake, watching ripples spread. The news broke soon after, a headline blazing across Chicago. Boy's courage stops con man's deadly plot. Jaden's face, serious but proud, stared from the papers, a photo from the precinct. The story spread, neighbors stopping by with plates of cornbread and words of awe. You're a hero, Jaden, said Mrs. Carter from next door, her eyes shining. Jaden ducked his head, embarrassed but warmed. Zuri, ever the rock, brought a scrapbook, pasting the article inside. Your dad would have filled a whole book with this, she said, her smile fierce with pride. Jaden traced Tundi's ring, feeling his father's presence in every word. But the ripples of Jaden's bravery stretched further. Nia Tate called one evening, her voice crackling with excitement. Jaden, another family came forward. A girl in Ohio saw your story and reported her stepfather. Same network as Khalil and Rhea. The police are closing in on the rest. Jaden's heart leapt, a mix of shock and pride. He'd saved Imani, but his courage had lit a path for others. Kids like him who felt the wrongness in a smile, a whisper. Imani hugged him, her tears warm against his cheek. You didn't just save us, baby. You gave other families a chance. As they sat by the lake again, the Chicago skyline glittering like a promise, Jaden felt Tundi's ring, its weight lighter now, a badge of his strength. Imani hummed a jazz tune, her voice soft but steady, and Jaden joined in, their harmony a quiet victory. The pain of Khalil's betrayal lingered, but so did their resilience, woven through every meal, every laugh, every stone they skipped across the water. Jaden looked at the stars, whispering, Thanks, Dad, for teaching me to fight. Their home, once shadowed by lies, was theirs again. And Jaden knew, with Tundi's ring and Imani's love, they'd face any storm together. Thank you for walking with Jaden through his daring stand against deception. What stirred your heart as he fought for Imani? Have you ever trusted a hunch to protect someone you love? Drop your thoughts below. We're eager to hear your stories. Your courage inspires us all. Until our next adventure, keep your fire burning, and we'll see you soon.